Detective Danny Ramirez had woken up believing that today would be an easy day. But when your partner is Nick Giannetti, you never really knew what the galaxy was going to throw at you. Tango, this is Cash. Over. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Danny pressed his forehead against the cold metal of their stakeout position, 300 meters above the glittering sprawl of New Horizon City. Through his scope, he watched a Krillian freighter settle onto landing pad 77 like a fat metallic tick. First of all, Danny replied, his voice crackling through the comms, you're not even using proper radio procedures. And secondly, and this is the important part, Tango and Cash are the stupidest call signs ever. You take that back right now, Danny Ramirez. That movie is a classic. Damn it, Nick. Now you're saying my name over the radio. Just get over here. Danny shook his head and made his way across the rooftop to where his partner crouched behind a corroded ventilation unit. Nick was already cycling through visual filters on his tactical visor, his fingers dancing over the holographic interface with the kind of manic energy that made Danny wonder if his partner had doubled up on stimcaps again. 3 crates, Nick said, zooming in on the freighter's cargo bay. Blue-white glow signature. That's pure night vein, Danny. Has to be at least 50 kilos. Danny whistled low. Night vein was the galaxy's newest nightmare. A synthetic narcotic that rewired neural pathways and turned users into slavering addicts after a single hit. The Galactic Council had declared it a Class A prohibited substance 4 months ago, right around the time Danny and Nick had graduated from the GIA Academy. You sure about this? Danny asked, though he already knew the answer. They'd been tracking this shipment for 3 weeks, following whispers and leads through the underbelly of 6 different worlds. This was their first real case as full agents, and they both felt the weight of it pressing down like a lead blanket. 70% sure, Nick said with a grin that was all teeth and bravado. Maybe 65. Those aren't good odds. They're better than the odds we had at Proxima Station. Danny grunted. Proxima Station had been their last op with Earth Defense Force Special Forces, a hostage rescue that had gone sideways faster than a politician's promise. They'd gotten everyone out alive, but just barely. That mission had been the catalyst for both of them to move out, to try something different. The GIA had seemed like a fresh start, a chance to use their skills for something besides kicking down doors and stacking bodies. Turns out the galaxy has plenty of doors to kick. Contact, Danny muttered, watching as 4 figures emerged from the freighter. 3 were Krillians, 7-foot insectoid beings with chitinous exoskeletons that gleamed like oil slicks under the landing pad lights. The 4th was something else entirely. A Shaltari, one of the reptilian species from the outer reaches, with scales that shifted colors like a mood ring from hell. That's our boy, Nick said, his voice dropping to a predatory growl. Sarith the Scale. Intel says he's the distribution hub for the entire Orion arm. They've been chasing Sarith for weeks, ever since their handler, a 4-armed Tetrani named Inspector Qualnix, had handed them the case file with an expression that clearly said, prove yourselves or get out. The rest of the agency still saw them as the human novelties, the new kids on the block. Danny and Nick were the first humans ever admitted to the GIA, and every day felt like a test they couldn't afford to fail. We going in? Nick asked, already checking his plasma pistol's charge level. Danny ran the scenarios in his head. They had backup 20 minutes out. By-the-book procedure said to wait, to observe, to build a perfect case before making a move. But the freighter's engines were already starting to whine with pre-flight power. Yeah, Danny said, drawing his own weapon. Let's do this. They took the express route down, a maglift that dropped them 40 stories in under 30 seconds and deposited them in an alley that smelled like ozone and alien garbage. Their vehicle sat waiting in the shadows, a Stalker-class pursuit craft that looked like someone had crossed a motorcycle with a jet fighter and given it anger issues. The agency had assigned it to them 3 days ago, and Nick had already named it the Eliminator. Danny had stopped arguing about things like that. They mounted up, the vehicle humming to life beneath them with that distinctive thrumming purr of an antimatter drive. Nick took the controls. He was the better pilot, though Danny would never admit it, and they shot out of the alley like a bullet from God's own sidearm. The flight to landing pad 77 took 90 seconds. They came in low and fast, the stalkers stealth plating bending light around them until they were little more than a shimmer in the night air. Nick brought them down on the pad's western edge, behind a row of cargo containers that reeked of fermented Glaxian fruit. Remember, Danny said, checking his sidearm one last time, we need Sarith alive. He's the only one who can lead us up the chain. I'll try to keep that in mind while they're shooting at us, Nick replied cheerfully. They moved fast, using the shadows and their own training to close the distance. Danny felt his old special forces instincts kicking in, the way his breathing slowed, the way the world seemed to sharpen and focus into vectors of attack and cover. Beside him, Nick moved like water, fluid and silent. They were 30 meters out when one of the Krillion's antennae twitched. Contact! The alien shrieked in a voice like grinding metal, and then all hell broke loose. The Krillions were fast. Danny would give them that. They had their weapons up and firing before he'd even finished processing the alarm call. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, turning raindrops into steam and scorching black marks across the landing pad's surface. Danny rolled left, came up firing. His first shot took a Krillion in the thorax, punching through its exoskeleton with a wet crunch. The alien went down shrieking, its legs spasming. Nick went right, his plasma pistol barking in rapid succession. He moved like a dancer, weaving between incoming fire with the kind of reckless grace that made Danny's blood pressure spike. 2 shots, 2 hits, another Krillion dropped, smoke rising from the holes in its carapace. "On your 6," Danny shouted, catching movement in his peripheral vision. Nick spun, already firing. The third Krillion's head exploded in a shower of ichor and chitin fragments. That left Sareth. The Shaltari was already moving, his reptilian body flowing toward the freighter's boarding ramp with surprising speed. He turned mid-stride, his own weapon, some kind of custom energy rifle, coming up to track them. Danny felt the air around him superheat as the shot missed by inches. He rolled behind a fuel drum, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Nick, flank left," he shouted. His partner was already moving, circling wide while Danny laid down suppressing fire. The strategy was textbook, something they'd done 1,000 times on 100 different battlefields. Trust your partner. Move with purpose. Never stop pressing the advantage. Sareth's scales flashed from green to angry red as he tracked between them, trying to decide which target posed the greater threat. That moment of hesitation cost him. Nick came in from the blind side, his plasma pistol set to stun. The bolt caught Sareth in the chest, and the alien went down hard, his weapon clattering across the pad's surface. Danny was on him in seconds, rolling the Shaltari onto his stomach and slapping magnetic cuffs on his wrists. The scales under his hands felt like warm leather, and Sareth hissed something that Danny's translator rendered as a creative suggestion about Danny's mother and a fusion reactor. "Cute," Danny said, hauling the alien to his feet. "You're under arrest for trafficking in prohibited substances, conspiracy to distribute, and really bad fashion choices. That vest is a crime against nature." Nick jogged over, his grin splitting his face. "Did we just do that? Tell me we just did that." "Oh, we did that," Danny confirmed, feeling the adrenaline starting to ebb. His hands were shaking slightly, the way they always did after a firefight. "The humans," Sareth hissed, his forked tongue flickering. "Of course, I should have known. You fight like we've been doing this our whole lives," Nick suggested helpfully. "Because we have. Earth might be new to the galactic stage, but we've had plenty of practice shooting each other." Danny keyed his comm. "Inspector Qualnix, this is Ramirez. We have Sareth in custody and approximately 50 kilos of night vein secured. Request immediate backup and evidence collection team." The response came through garbled at first, then clarified into their handler's distinctive four-toned voice. "You engaged without waiting for backup." "The situation was fluid," Danny said, using the kind of bureaucratic language that covered a multitude of tactical sins. "We assessed the risk and determined immediate action was necessary to prevent loss of evidence." There was a long pause. "You're either the bravest agents I've ever worked with or the stupidest, possibly both. Backup is inbound. Don't let anything happen to that prisoner." The comm clicked off. "She loves us," Nick said. "She's going to kill us," Danny replied. Probably both." The interrogation room at GIA headquarters was a study in calculated discomfort. The chairs were designed to accommodate dozens of different species, which meant they were perfectly comfortable for exactly none of them. The lighting cycled through spectrums meant to put different aliens on edge. And the walls had a way of seeming closer than they actually were. Sareth sat across from them, his scales having settled into a dull brown that Danny's briefing materials said indicated resignation or fear. His wrists were still cuffed, and a neural dampener around his neck prevented any telepathic or psionic tricks. "Here's the thing," Danny said, leaning back in his chair with an ease he didn't quite feel. "We've got you dead to rights on the trafficking charges. That's 50 years in a council detention facility, minimum. Your life is effectively over. Unless," Nick picked up smoothly, "you give us something better, someone higher up the chain. Maybe we can talk to the prosecutor, get you a deal. 20 years instead of 50. That's a lot of time to enjoy mediocre prison food and contemplate your life choices. Sareth's tongue flickered. You do not understand what you are dealing with. The night vein operation. It is not just smuggling. There are experiments, genetic modifications. They are trying to create a new strain, one that works on species previously immune. Danny felt his stomach drop. Who's they? The Talnari Syndicate, Sareth hissed. They run operations across 12 sectors. And the night vein, it is only the beginning. They are developing something called the xenophage, a biological weapon that targets specific genetic markers. They could wipe out entire species with the right formulation. Nick whistled low. That's above our pay grade. Way above, Danny agreed, but his mind was already racing, connecting dots and seeing patterns. This was bigger than a simple drug bust. This was the kind of case that could make careers or end them. Where's the main lab? Station Acheron, Sareth said. In the Tartarus belt, but you will never get in. The security is. Let us worry about that, Danny interrupted. He glanced at Nick, saw his own determination reflected there. They'd stumbled onto something huge, and backing down wasn't in either of their vocabularies. Inspector Qualnix looked like she wanted to throttle them with all four of her arms. Absolutely not, she said, her voice resonating in the overlapping harmonic tones that marked Tetrani anger. You two are probationary agents on your first solo case. I'm not sending you into the heart of the most dangerous criminal organization in this sector. With respect, Inspector, Danny said carefully, we're already in this. Sareth will only talk to us, and we've proven we can handle ourselves. You got lucky, Qualnix countered, but her tone had shifted slightly from absolute refusal to something closer to consideration. Lucky is better than good, Nick said with his trademark grin. We'll take a support team, full tactical, in and out before they know what hit them. The inspector was quiet for a long moment, her four eyes studying them with an intensity that made Danny feel like a specimen under a microscope. Finally, she sighed, a sound like wind through metal pipes. The council has been trying to crack the Talnari Syndicate for years, she said quietly. If what Sareth says is true, if they're developing a biological weapon, we cannot ignore that. Very well, you have authorization to proceed, but you take Agent Vrexnon and a full tactical squad. Who's Vrexnon? Nick asked. My best infiltration specialist, a Noxian. And before you ask, yes, that means he can phase through solid matter. Try not to look too impressed when you meet him. Station Acheron was a nightmare of industrial architecture bolted onto a hollowed-out asteroid. It orbited a dead star in the Tartarus belt, surrounded by radiation storms and debris fields that made navigation a lethal game of chance. They came in under stealth, their insertion craft phasing through the station's outer hull thanks to Vrexnon's abilities. The Noxian was a wraith-like being of shadows and whispers, his form never quite solid, never quite real. He spoke in a voice like distant thunder. The lab is 3 levels down, he whispered. Heavy security, automated defenses, and approximately 40 Talnari enforcers. 40, Nick said. That's it, Danny elbowed him. That's plenty. But they moved with confidence born of training and trust. The tactical squad, 6 aliens of various species, all veterans, spread out in a practice pattern. Danny and Nick took point, their plasma weapons charged and ready. The first resistance came at the security checkpoint. 4 Talnari guards, massive, bear-like creatures with tusks and bad attitudes, tried to lock down the corridor. Danny and Nick moved as one unit, their years of combat experience translating seamlessly. Danny went low, his shots precise and controlled, taking out the guards' weapons before they could fire. Nick went high, his covering fire keeping them pinned while the tactical squad flanked. It was over in seconds. The guards went down without killing anyone. Stun shots were preferable when you wanted intelligence and prisoners. They pushed deeper, through corridors that stank of chemical compounds and fear. They found the lab 3 levels down, just as Vrexnon had said. But what they found inside made Danny's blood run cold. Tanks, dozens of them, filled with creatures in various states of genetic modification. Some were recognizable as known species. Others were something else, twisted, wrong. Sweet mother of, Nick breathed. Document everything, Danny ordered, his voice tight. This is evidence. The council needs to see this. But they weren't alone. The lab's head scientist, a multi-armed Dravix with cybernetic enhancements, emerged from a side chamber, flanked by combat drones. Human filth, the scientist hissed, his translator rendering the words with crystalline hatred. You should have stayed on your primitive little world. Yeah, we get that a lot, Danny said, already moving. Nick, get the drones. The fight was chaos. The drones were military-grade, their weapons tearing chunks out of the walls and floor. Danny rolled behind a lab table, his mind automatically calculating angles and trajectories. He came up firing, his shots taking out 3 drones in quick succession. Nick had commandeered one of the lab's plasma torches, using it like a flamethrower to melt through a drone's armor plating. The machine exploded in a shower of sparks and molten metal. The Dravik scientist tried to run. Vrexnon phased through a wall and clotheslined him with an arm that was only partially solid. The alien went down hard. "Clear," Danny shouted, his ears ringing from the gunfire. The tactical squad secured the lab, beginning the process of downloading data files and cataloging evidence. Danny stood among the tanks, looking at the twisted creatures within, and felt a cold fury settle in his chest. "This is what they were willing to do," he said quietly. "For profit, for power." Nick clasped his shoulder. "We stopped them, Danny. That counts for something." The debriefing at GIA headquarters took 6 hours. Danny and Nick sat through it all, answering questions, providing testimony, watching as the evidence they'd collected was analyzed and verified. When it was done, Inspector Kwolnik stood before them, her 4 arms crossed in a gesture that might have been respect. "The Council has authorized a full investigation into the Talnari Syndicate," she said. "Thanks to your work, we have enough evidence to dismantle their operations across multiple sectors. Lives have been saved, potentially entire species. Does this mean we passed probation?" Nick asked. Kwolnik's mouth parts twitched in what might have been a smile. "You're both reckless, insubordinate, and far too comfortable with improvisation. You're also the best natural investigators I've seen in 20 years. Yes, detectives, you passed." Danny felt something tight in his chest loosen. They'd done it, proven themselves, shown that humans belonged among the stars, not as warriors or conquerors, but as protectors, as investigators, as equals. "One more thing," Kwolnik added. "That vehicle you've been using, the Stalker, it's yours now. Try not to crash it." "No promises," Nick said with a grin. Later, sitting in their newly assigned office overlooking New Horizon City's glittering sprawl, Danny and Nick shared a bottle of Earth whiskey that Nick had smuggled past customs. "You know what the best part is?" Nick said, his feet propped up on his desk. "We're not the outsiders anymore. We're just cops. Good cops, but still." "Is that the best part?" Danny asked. "Or is it that we get to keep doing this?" "Both. Definitely both." Outside, the city hummed with life. 1,000 species, 1,000,000 stories, all intersecting in the vast tapestry of galactic civilization. And somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between stars, there were more cases waiting, more mysteries, more chances to prove that humanity's greatest export wasn't violence or ambition, it was justice. Danny raised his glass. "To first cases." "To many more," Nick replied. They drank, and the city lights sparkled like promises in the dark. Because at the end of the day, it didn't matter what world you came from or how many limbs you had. What mattered was simple. Did you stand up when others fell? Did you push forward when the path was dark? Did you choose to be something more than what the galaxy expected? The answer, for Danny Ramirez and Nick Giannetti, would always be yes. And in a universe full of unknowns, that was the only certainty that mattered. That when darkness comes calling, there will always be those who answer with light.